Evening, folks, and welcome back to the View podcast, episode 12 of this season's campaign. We're 1 week away from the kickoff of the start of the season, exactly 1 month left in the transfer window. Joined tonight by Ben Locky Leeds, by Joe Blackburn, and by Max from Leeds lately as well. All their details and their channel descriptions are down below. You can go check them out as well. We'll get into the main topics of conversation tonight, but before we get into that, Mr. Joe Blackburn is doing a charity walk that I wanted to give Joe some time to speak about. So, Joe, tell us about the walk.
So it's all for Prostate Cancer UK. It's in memory of my granddad. I'm starting on the west side of the North Yorkshire Moors in Somerville and going 42 miles east until we eventually hit Whitby. And we made the brilliant decision that the last little bit of the walk would be the 199 steps, basically vertically up. And that feels like that might be a mistake by the end of it. But I'll ping Joe the link to the Just Giving page. It's for a really good cause, and hopefully it's in the description below. And apparently, yep, there we go. I thought you'd set off on the walk early, but who knows? But yeah, it'd be appreciated if anyone has a few spare pennies. That'd be fantastic.
It's a fantastic charity. Joe, I've talked to you before about my father passed away with prostate cancer, so it's something that's very close to me. I know from speaking to people involved with that as well, they will tell you that most men at some point in their life will end up with prostate cancer at some point. So, you know, I think one doctor said to my dad at one point, if you were to dig up all the people who've died of old age and were to do a check, chances are there was prostate cancer there as well. So it's quite a large thing. It's in a lot of men suffer with it. So check it out. Make sure you check yourself as well. Go speak to doctors. Do your annual yearly checkups of especially if you're hitting 40 or over 40. It's definitely a point that you should do that. But details will be down below. You can check them out as well. You can give or you can walk, whatever you want to do. Go talk to Joe as well, and I'll direct you back towards Joe for all of the proper information and not my version of it. So you can get that directly from the horse's mouth. Locky, you've been moving house this week. How's that been?
Yeah, great, mate. I'm knackered. I can't lie. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I chose a good weekend, the only good weekend we've had in about 9 years in this country to move house, which is great fun. I was cleaning today, cleaning the new flat. Brilliant. Good times, mate. Yep. Sorry, brought that up, mate.
It's
all right. Don't worry.
Max, how have you been, mate?
All right, yeah, thanks. I've been looking forward to seeing some new signings. I've been enjoying the pre-season friendlies, and then today happened / yesterday. So I'm sure we'll get into that. But other than that, I was enjoying pre-season, watching these games and going, they look very good, strong squad, all these things. And then it's just like, boom, no. Enjoyment? Never.
How dare you? Yeah, how dare you get comfortable with nice things. Joe, how's your week been?
It's been a bit quiet. It's been very calm before stormy. Like with work, for example, doing sports broadcasting stuff, we're at the stage where you've not got the international tournaments, but you've not got the season, and no one wants to broadcast all of the pre-season friendlies because that gives away things. So it's very much a sort of, okay, we're just sort of twiddling our thumbs a little bit. I think one of the broadcasts we did recently had a viewership of about 30 people, which definitely felt fun. But yeah, it's a waiting game, innit? And prep for the walk and stuff like that. But yeah, I want to be busy again.
I'm sure you will be. I wouldn't get too comfortable for too long. I'm sure you definitely will be. Yeah, well, let's not dilly-dally and get into it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Crescencio Summerville heading off to West Ham. Not finalised and fully confirmed just yet. It is expected to be confirmed at some point late this evening or early tomorrow. But there are some questions to ask. Everyone and their mother has done some content on what the fee looks like in the breakdown and their opinions on it. So wanted to have a conversation with some of the camera heads in the Leeds United community to see what they thought about it. And I want to start with Joe, because you did a video this morning that I watched on my little drive for my coffee this morning, and it was nice to hear a calming voice talk about it in a structured, detailed way. My question to you is your thoughts on the fee and the breakdown of the fee.
My thoughts on the fee are that as much as it would have been nice to have it all up front, at the end of the day, £34 million, assuming that is what we end up getting given all the add-ons. We don't have all of the details around it, and I'm assuming a couple of them will be tricky to get to. But 30 to 34 million quid, that ain't that bad. Because at the end of the day, Somerville was a player where a lot of the time last season I was thinking to myself, you can't just keep doing the cut inside and shoot thing. It works a few times, but defenders are starting to read it, and it did
Tell
work a hell
Arjen
of a lot.
Robben that.
Also Dutch, to be fair. Also
Entire
Dutch.
career was cut inside shoot.
But yeah, I think it's a fair-ish price, and I feel like we sort of got ourselves ramped into this conversation of what if it's 40 million? And there was the stream that I know Joe was on. I think Locky might have been on, where Gabe was also there, and he was like 50 million. I was like, I feel like we're getting a little bit carried away here, because I know we like to value our players highly, but 50 million would have been incredibly high and very unlikely. So as much as I would have liked it up front, add-ons make sense, and it's just, yeah, it's fine enough, I think. It's not something to get that mad about, especially since we basically knew Cree was going.
I think the asking price that Leeds were rumored to be looking for was between 30 and 40 million pounds. If you take the entirety of the deal, it's a 25 million pound flat fee plus 5 million in performance-based add-ons and a potential 4 million if he makes his international debut in a competitive game. Not necessarily in that order. If he makes a competitive international game, Leeds will get another 4 million on that. It's a 5-year deal for Cree, so a lot of that will be spread out over the 5 years as well, which again isn't the end of the world, because Leeds do have amortization payments that they have to pay over the next couple of years as well, and that kind of goes towards helping that as well. But that is the fee. Max, what was your thoughts when you saw it come out last night, and what kind of emotions did you go through before you landed on your final one?
Well, I do think that we were all kind of expecting this. But I think it's difficult when you see us actually have a couple of preseason friendlies. You see that we're actually playing and he's in the team. And then you're like, oh, hold on, now he's going. Do you get what I mean? Like if it's before anything, you go, okay, we expected that. But it's just the context of the situation, isn't it? It's the fact that Archie Gray has already gone and Glenn Kamara's gone and everyone's going, all right, we're okay now for profit and sustainability. But we kind of expected him to go. The kind of where I land with it, and where I said in my video, like you said, everybody's made a video on this, is that it's pretty standard procedure for somebody leaving from the championship. I'm looking now on Transfermarkt at like the top championship departures ever in terms of price. You've got outliers like Romeo Lavia, but he was still a Premier League player. It doesn't really count as a championship transfer, does it? No. But when you start to look down the list, you've got players like James Maddison. The first time he left was 25 million euros. Sorry, so that's less. Ollie Watkins, 34 million euros. So that's less. James Ward-Prowse, 34 million euros. So Somerville is around that mark for a very good player leaving a championship club. You don't expect to get 50, 60 million pounds for a championship player. It just doesn't really happen, no matter how good they've been. So all in all, I think it's decent money for him. And that is the 25 million pounds. That's without add-ons. So when you consider the add-ons as well, obviously it massively helps us out. And the thing is as well, because of the way that profit and sustainability works, when you sell a player, you bank the full amount, even if they are paying over a certain amount of time. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you sell a player, I'm pretty sure you get the full amount marked off against your sales.
I think you get the full amount that you're guaranteed, and then as various add-ons activate, I think those would be,
yeah. So it'd be still 25 million pounds, right? Mm-hmm. And when you consider that Summerville was bought for what, 1 or 2 million pounds as a youth prospect, it's been long enough now that we'll have paid off that whole amount, I would imagine. So
well paid.
Yeah, so that's like 25 million pounds profit, which championship teams don't often spend 25 million pounds on a player. But we would have the license to, if I know we're going to probably talk about who could replace, but you've got the license then to go, okay, well, normally we wouldn't be able to afford a Gabriel Sara, somebody like that. But because of this, technically, we're in the green to just go, bang, there you go, we can buy him. But it remains to be seen what we do with it, what we do with the money. But we've got it there, and we kind of were expecting it. So that's where I'm pretty level-headed about it. I expected it.
Yeah, if you take the Euros fee into consideration, 25 million pounds is 29.5 million euro. If you bring it up to the 30 with the first set of add-ons, 30 million pounds is 35 plus 35, 36 million euros.
It puts in joint 7th for the most expensive export from the championship ever.
Yeah. And that's without the additionals of the extra 4 on top of that, which probably bring it closer to 42 million euro, which is, if you encompass all that together, which
Yeah.
we won't get all of that. There is some trophy bonuses on there, and I think we all said the same thing. I was like, well, that's not going to happen. And then I remembered that they had won the Conference League 2 years ago, and you're like, well, that was a trophy. If they win a Carabao Cup, that's a trophy. So and looking at what West Ham are putting together, and Lopetegui is definitely being backed in this window, pretty significant. They could be building something pretty exciting there. So, and Cree was their number one target apparently. And once Lopetegui spoke to Cree apparently was bought into the whole thing and informed Leeds that this was the move that he wanted, and Leeds then just activated what they said they would and had a conversation with West Ham. But Locky, are you happy with it? Obviously sad to see Cree go. He's kind of handled it the right way. He hasn't thrown his ties out of pram. He hasn't kicked up a fuss. He's turned up the preseason. He's done the work. He's looked happy. How are you feeling about it?
Honestly, man, I'm fine. Like, after playoffs, I was convinced for the most part that he's just not going to be here next season. He's too good. He's too good. Regardless of the club say we want to keep him, how often does that actually happen? The players tend to win. They tend to leave, usually very late. Like, imagine it was 3 weeks from now and all our potential replacements that the club have said we definitely will get. The media have said, the Leeds media have said they will be replacements. If you do this 3 weeks later from now, you try hold off for a few weeks, they could have gone. And then you're stuck on getting for example, Jadon Anthony on loan who you didn't really want. You don't want that, do you? At the time now, I'm assuming the targets that we want are still available. This is a good time for it. The season hasn't started yet. His pre-season, he's not been a huge part of it. I don't think he started a game. I think that's telling. I think Farke has been preparing for that. I think he knew. He mentioned his press conference, Farke. I think he mentioned Cree specifically and said, we know there's going to be bids. Farke's known for probably weeks that it's likely, just a matter of when. Look, like I said, I'm happy for Cree. He did really well for the most of last season. I've seen people online trying to diminish what he did. It's crazy. If you can't respect what he did, you'll never respect what a player does for your club. It's mental. But I saw someone, and this is, I guess, sums it up, Joe. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose, my bad. I sat there doing this. I saw someone, and they saw Emile Smith-Rowe going, isn't it, for about, I think it's over the Cree fee, what we're paying for Cree. And he's going, oh, look, Emile Smith-Rowe's hardly played in 2 years, been injured, he's going to this club for this amount, and it's more than us. It's like, one, that's Emile Smith-Rowe, who does he play for England? Oh, he's definitely around the England squad.
And he's a Leeds hero.
Yeah, he is, yeah. He's a better player. He's literally played in the Premier League and one of the best bright sparks in the English game a few years ago before his injuries. And it's from Premier League club to Premier League club. We're a championship club. We can't be saying, give us 50 million. It's ridiculous. Has that ever happened? Like Max said, the Romeo Lavia and those type deals, they were teams that got relegated. They were not teams that had played, they were not players that had played in the Premier League. He got relegated from the Premier League. He never played in the Championship. You look at it's fine. It's a good fee. Honestly, I'm not bothered with it. At the end of the day, Joe, we sell him, we get good replacements in, we go to the Premier League, who cares? Like, if we don't get anyone in and we sell Cree, that's a problem, obviously. But like, it's not. I know it's not my money. I know it isn't. It's not my money. I believe the club, the experts at the club know the right amount we need and all that to get players in. I'm assuming this won't affect it. It's all a bit mad in it, to be fair. In an ideal world, though, you are looking at it going, oh, I'd love 40 million for a player, but was that ever really that realistic? No, not for me.
Probably not. Would have been nice, but have we got to the Premier League?
Yeah,
maybe.
That's it. Yeah.
I think everybody thinks when they've got a player like Somerville in the Championship, I think they're obviously, and they don't go up, they're obviously always reluctant to let them leave, and when they are, they're always expecting a lot of money for them. But it happens with every club. Every time somebody gets a player like that and they've torn it up in the Championship, they're always going, oh well, yeah, should be 50 million for him. But it just, when you look at when you actually go down the list of players that have sold from the Championship, it's not an outlier. It's not too cheap. It's not too much. It's about right, to be honest, which is the thing as well. Probably what the 49ers have looked at and gone, do you know what's the general market value for selling an attacking midfielder, if you will, from the Championship? This is about how much we'll get at a maximum.
I was just going to say, the Championship is the 11th highest ranked league in the world. What and a group, see, like the Russian league is, I think it's one above us or one below us. Is a player from the Russian league going for 40 million to the Premier? Not really. You know, teams don't spend over a certain amount in these leagues because they're not proven leagues. And Chris Somerville had a good period in the Premier League, he did, but he didn't tear up the Premier League for 35 games, did he? This is one really, really good season, and that's what you're going on. Teams are not going to pay 40 million for that. It's not like he's 17, 18, you know. If he was that age, maybe, but he isn't. He's 22, 23, you know. So, yeah, you're not going to get more for me.
The reality of Leeds being a championship club is never more real in this situation because every player has their price. Every single championship player has a price tag. Every one of them. None of them are not for sale. Every player in the championship ultimately is for sale if somebody wants to get in around that fee or get into it with them. And the best ones always leave. They always do leave. I mean, Emil Smith-Rowe is a very interesting comparison of a player that was handed Arsenal's number 10 shirt and was outside of injuries, was expected to be a massive player in the top 2 or 3 spots in the Premier League. So it isn't really comparable when you look at, well, you've got one season with Chris Somerville. I'm not diminishing what he did last season, but it is a single season, and that does change the conversation slightly. But you are getting ultimately what the 49ers were looking for, which is between 30 and 40 million. It's in that ballpark. The timing is the biggest part for me. We could have, and they could have, sat and thought we might get 45 if we wait. But then you're in a situation where potentially you're walking into a Luis Sinisterra situation on the final day of the window going, he has to go now. Like, the player wants to go. There's no other offers on the table, and you might not get what you want, and you might actually get less than you want because the player wants to play Premier League football. So, and whether people think it's not about the player and ignore the player doesn't have a say in this, they do. And modern day footballers do. If a modern day footballer walks into a manager and goes, I want to leave, there is a discussion to be had. That discussion usually is, if we can get the fee for you, yeah. If we don't, you stay. Leeds have pretty much got what they were looking for here. And the timing of it, Joe, means that Leeds have time now to go and get a signing. And that, for me, is hugely important here.
Yeah, we have plenty of time to sort of make that deal happen. And it's a lot better than what happened at the last minute last season, which is Sinisterra's gone. Oh, we need a winger. Who was at the same club that we can sort of use as leverage in the deal and all that sort of stuff. Like, this way, there's genuinely an opportunity to go, right, okay, what's the price range? Who is in the price range? Who fits the system best? And who has the best quality that would fit us in an ideal way without us having to rework the system and stuff like that. We have time to work out player profiles and the level at which they are able to work. And it's just vastly better than wait a little bit. Yeah, you might get another £5 million, but you also might not. You might have West Ham have signed someone completely different. So have Liverpool, so have Chelsea, so have Fulham. I don't know who else was in for him. But at that point, you've got a player that was like, well, I quite badly wanted a move, and you've just said no, and now no one wants me, and I'm quite pissed off at that. And then you end up with basically the Nonto situation all over again, except everyone knows that Cree is an insanely good player, and leaving him on the bench or out of the squad would lead to the fans basically revolting, I think. So going this early not only guarantees you've got a decent enough fee, but you've got time to do something about it and fix things rather than panic, which is, I think, a good thing.
And one of the things that always stands out, and a lot of successful clubs do this, is it was said near the start of the window that, look, we're in a good financial position, but if anyone doesn't want to be here and they tell the manager that, we will try and sell them for a reasonable price that we think's fair. Cree, obviously, prefer to play for West Ham, obviously. Who wouldn't, in terms of not being a fan, obviously, generally, but they're in the Premier League. He could be fighting for Europe. He's playing in the Premier League. He can get his national call-up, which he deserves for me anyway. There's so many things. He's probably gone to Daniel Farke and said, look, I really like this offer at West Ham. Please, I'd like to go. And you do not want to keep a player that's happy. That's not to say the player won't put his head down and work, but you want everyone there who is 100% focused on one goal. That is it. Pep Guardiola does it. And everyone, he says to anyone, literally anyone, even Kevin De Bruyne, if you don't want to be here, you can go. That's fine. As long as we find a fee for you, you can leave. That don't bother me. But it's about that replacement, right? It's about getting someone in now who really wants to be here and wants to prove themselves at this level.
I think that's the same with last summer, to be honest. I think that Somerville wanted out last summer anyway, and he has got his head down and had a season and played really well because somebody has got in his ear and said, you know what? Play really well in the Championship, prove you're a good enough player for a Premier League move, then you'll get your move. And I think that's almost what's been promised to him by the club as well. I think, look, if a player is really unhappy and they still don't get their move, then the club has to kind of not baby them, but like just chivvy them along just by saying, look, get your head down, play really well, and we'll definitely be open to offers in the summer. I think they always knew this was coming. And hence what you said, Joe, before, that Daniel Farke has hinted that there's replacements lined up. So regardless of what stage of preseason this is, I do still think it does have a little bit of a negative effect. If it had happened before anything and you still have a full preseason to bed in, because I do feel like we have slightly changed the way that we're going to play this season in terms of midfielders and who's going forward and stuff. Maybe not the position that Summerville is in as much, but whoever comes in now is going to have less time, is just a fact, is going to have less time to try and bed into the system. What I think is not as worrying about that is the fact that we've got Brendan Aronson back. Because we lost Jayden Anthony going back to Bournemouth from his loan, we look like, okay, we're a player down. But then Aronson comes in and backfills that spot. And so essentially we're only one player down now. So we can afford to have Jorginho out on the left, Aronson through the middle, Dan James on Nonto out on the right. We have enough players to cover that. I do think that whoever comes in isn't going to start the first few games of the season for me, because Daniel Farke wants them to have a proper amount of time to bed in. But yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think he always knew that he was going to go, and I think the club did. And let's be honest, I think we all probably did as well.
Yeah, I was pretty much settled on the fact as soon as the final whistle went against Southampton in Wembley, it was like, right, Cree's gone, Willie's probably gone. Let's hang on to Georgie and see where we are then. What
and
they
Archie
bring
Gray,
in.
let's hang on to Archie Gray as well. Definitely, that's a good one to do.
He'll stay Archie Gray.
He's going to stay. He's Leeds. Yeah.
I had a very quick thought on the Cree thing, by the way. Is Cree arguably a really good advertisement for people that might potentially be considering a move to Leeds? In that we've basically said, okay, if you want to leave last season, that's fine enough, but you didn't find a move. And let's be honest, last season, if Cree were to move, it would be to a Luton or a Burnley who were just on the way up, because at that point he hadn't really proven himself.
But Burnley tried, didn't they?
Yeah, and he's had a season since then to basically go, look, I've ripped up this league. Clubs need to be lining up for me. And for a bit, they did. And it's a sort of advert to various other players that I'm sure we'll get into, to say, look, if you come here and it doesn't work out, there is still a route to the top for you. Trust us. And it feels like it's sort of an advert for us in a way that is sort of beyond look at what we're doing tactically and in terms of results. It's a little bit more sort of like systemic and club level stuff.
Well, you're right, Joe. I think it's league as well. I think it's a league thing. And we have the pull of being the biggest and the best team in that league. The Championship is great for young talent that wants to look at Gyökeres. One of the best strikers in the world now. It was at Coventry a few years ago. There's loads. Teller was at the season, won the Bundesliga last year with Bayer Leverkusen. Somerville now, Archie Gray, all going to decent Premier League sides that are looking
big money as well.
Yeah, big money. And how many years were they all in the Championship? I think Gyökeres was one or two maybe, but the other ones were just 1 year.
Ollie Watkins as well.
Yeah,
Tony.
There's a lot of them.
There's so many. There is so many. It's a great advert for young talent that want to prove.
And for coaches. Young coaches getting picked up from the Championship now as well. Look at Maresca as an example. Goes to Leicester, gets promoted, Chelsea now.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a great
league for it. With the Somerville move as well, I've just kind of had a thought whilst we were talking here that I wouldn't be entirely surprised if the club filled that spot with a loan. Because the same way they did Jayden Anthony last season, it's kind of like, right, well, at some point, if we go up to the Premier League, not all of these players are good enough to make it. Yeah. So if we buy someone now, okay, we could go out and spend 15 million on Jack Clark. We could. And take him to the Premier League. There is no guarantee that works. Or your other option is get someone in on loan, keep it cheap, save you money. If you get promoted to the Premier League, then you can spend big money on a winger. I feel like it might be the sort of business decision that the 49ers might take. And I feel like a lot of people will be upset about it as well if that happened, because people will be like, look at all that money you've just got, you cheapskates, and you're getting a loan.
Yeah. You're pocketing that, you're asset stripping the club, you're selling their best players, and you're putting the money in your back pocket, despite the fact there's $100 million hole in Leeds finances right now that needs to be plugged.
I feel like it might cause head loss, but I wouldn't be against it. I think it would be quite a shrewd decision.
I agree.
The player, right? Who's the player? That's the key. It doesn't matter how much are they good. Look at Ben White. No one knew who he was. He was the best defender in the league. Look at him now.
It's an incredibly good point, Locky. It doesn't matter. The fee ultimately, and I said this yesterday, the fee doesn't matter to us as fans. It really, because that money's not going in your bank account and my bank account. It doesn't matter. What matters is the replacement.
Yeah,
that matters. That's the big thing. And if Leeds have said they've got solutions, but you're on Max's point, if Leeds are bringing Raksaki on loan for the rest of the season, get promoted to the Premier League, and then go and buy a Premier League proven winger as a Premier League club who can offer Premier League football, it's possibly a more attractive thing. I think you could bring in Jack Clark and go up with Jack Clark, but again, as you've said, Max, it's an unproven entity in that division.
He went to the Premier League with Spurs. He never made a first. Well, he must have made one or two first team appearances, but not young. Yeah, he was. Yeah, but
he left Leeds way too early, didn't he?
Way too early. Yeah. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about the solutions, because Farke has said this. So some of the stuff we've heard and has been quoted didn't necessarily directly come from the club. And I know Joe last night spoke about it on his podcast. I've gone, people heard 45 to 50 and we just took 50 and went, that's the fee, 50.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't necessarily what was said, but something that has been said out loud was by Daniel Farke after the Hanover and Schalke games, where he said Leeds have wanted a centre mid or fullback, and if one of the two if some of the big players left, Leeds had solutions to fix that, and he was happy with the solutions that Leeds had. So, Locky, from you, what did that solution look like? Who was that solution? Is it a Gabriel Sara as a 10, which I just don't see happening? Is it a Jack Clark? Is it a Raksaki? Who is it for you? What do Leeds need as a profile there?
Well, I love Raksaki. I would, but I'm convinced he might be going to Southampton. I think there's a lot of people talking about the fact he's not gone on the tour. I think that's for Southampton, to be honest. I think it's because he wants to move there. For me, and I said this name before, I've done my research on the relationship, and it ain't as bad as people say. He fits the system. He was excellent in the Championship under Daniel Farke. That's Todd Cantwell. Perfect. I was so impressed with him in that season they got promoted. And he had a lot of problems in the Premier League, but he's done a really good interview. I can't remember the channel it was on, but he talks about all this. This is where all this stuff comes from. He got dropped by Daniel Farke for certain things that happened, right? He had personal problems. But then he talks about, and people think that he fell out. I don't think that was true. He got dropped, and I think he was a bit annoyed by that. But what happened was Daniel Farke got sacked soon after that. Now, Todd Cantwell stayed in the 21s when the new manager, Dean Smith, came in.
Interesting.
And Todd Cantwell hints in this interview that it's a higher up. I think there was a relationship with, what's his name? Summit Webber, the guy we were linked with.
Webber, yeah, it was the sporting director was gone. Yes, Stuart Webber, yeah.
He mentions it 3 or 4 times about how there was more powers. He talks about how he ignored him at training, did Webber, and he didn't speak to him. So I think the relationship between them two being bad is blown out. I think it's something that can be a phone call to fix. I really do. In the same interview, he says a lot of good things about Daniel Farke and how he loved playing under him and how he'd give him a chance. So he's just putting a transfer request at Rangers.
Right, Dave said he's gone.
So Locky, then, do you play him out on the left or do you play him through the middle?
Left, mate. I think the thing with Todd Cantwell, Matt, is look, he can play anywhere in that left middle, right? He's such a fluid player, and that's what his role was for Norwich. He was so fluid. He can drop deep and get it. He'd go anywhere to find the ball, and that's what I love about him. He's not a guy who will get you 15 assists and goals a season. No, he isn't, but he's so vital to the way Daniel Farke played. Buendia got all the goals and assists, but watch the games. Todd Cantwell did everything in build-up. He was really key for me. Whether he plays in the middle, imagine him and Jorginho on the same team. That's an absolute joke.
Oh, yeah.
And Nonto as well, or Dan James.
They're actually a little bit similar in their profiles, Jorginho and Todd Cantwell. It's kind of like that gangly, doesn't quite look right, but somehow really good at going past people and stuff. Yeah,
I think Todd Cantwell's probably not better on the ball, that's wrong. More mature on the ball. He won't try
decision making.
Yeah, he's older. He's 26 now. Again, he's talking about how he's matured and stuff. I don't know. I don't think the relationship's as bad as people say. I think it could be fixed. I could be wrong. But reading between what he said, there's more problems at Norwich than Daniel Farke. He said a lot of good things about him. So that'd be one for me. I don't know.
It's an interesting one. Rangers have pretty much said he can go. I think Clement said transfer request in, doesn't want to be here. Fine. Move on. Joe, you've talked an awful lot about players in the last week or so on your channel. What do you think Leeds do? Is it a case that Leeds possibly stick Gio Rudder out on the left, which was the position they bought him to play in, or on the right, and bring in another number 10, or do Leeds go and get a like-for-like replacement?
I'm gonna start on the Cantwell stuff, and this is going to be the least football analysis thing you will ever hear me say. I had to Google him to make sure that I was thinking of the right person. The reason I personally wouldn't like us to sign Todd Cantwell is I don't like his face and the way he looks a bit too much like Prince Charming from Shrek. That's it. That's the entire thing.
Fair. That's fair.
It's completely irrational.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's it, done. Get him off the list. Get him off the list.
Your
face is annoying me. Get off the list.
But I did a video a little bit earlier. It was one that I was going to not do or do as live, but I didn't quite get a chance to adjust it. That I was recording right before this, and I had a little bit of a look into sort of the details of Morgan Whittaker, because he's been discussed quite a lot by lots and lots and lots of different people. Has a price that I think is firmly within our range now. We have just gotten a lump sum of 25 million quid. We can spend 10 on a winger that scored, how many did he score last season? Something like 19 or something daft like that. And the season before, the season before he was better per 90 as well. So he's very clearly got a lot about him. Is now firmly in our price range. We can offer him a manager that isn't Wayne Rooney, because we saw what happened to Birmingham. I think it's a move that sort of would make sense on his end.
Sorry, Joe, that's a great way to put it. We can offer him a manager that isn't Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened with Birmingham last season. We saw what happened. Was it Dallas that he managed that, or was it DC United? It was one of the two.
DC United.
DC. Playing there, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a situation in which realistically he could see a genuine negative impact to his career from being managed by Wayne Rooney, and this is a feasible way out for him. But we also offer a route forwards for him, and he's the perfect profile as well. It's effectively what he's done last season is what Summerville did for us, but on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. And he played very centrally, which we're looking to do according to the pre-season friendlies so far. We've played Rutter and Aronson through the middle with Firpo and Bogle playing on the overlap. It just works. It's the perfect fit. And whilst 10 million is quite a bit for a championship player, and whilst there is still that point of, yeah, but we don't know if it works in the Premier League, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I don't mind us investing a bit to get there and make that bit of progress first.
Yeah, he scores goals and gets you up, and you don't want him. Another top championship club takes him off you for the same price.
Yeah.
If he proves it.
That's it. All these championship wingers, I like them, the Rose and all that. I'm worried about the price. I am worried about the price. I think with Plymouth, though, as opposed to like the Norwiches and the other teams with these good wingers, Plymouth are lower. So would they accept a lower fee? That's one thing that maybe might edge that. And if it gets later on in the window and he does want to go and Leeds is going, look, we'll give you 10 million. It's good money for Plymouth, isn't it? So honestly, I'd love the player. Any one of them names, like the Rose and Whittaker and all that. I think they're all excellent players. It's just about the fee for me. Because it's their biggest asset and probably their only real asset, to be honest. So they might ask a bit more, I don't know. But yeah, I think we need to be ambitious and bullish with whoever it is. If it is a loan, it has to be a really good player. If it is a player like Whittaker and he's our number one target and they're asking for a bit more, I feel like if he's your target and he's your man, you've got to go for it within reason, obviously. Don't be like giving him 20 million and all that stuff. But
yeah. Max, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, look, when you think about Somerville, the thing that he did last season was get us a lot of goals and a lot of assists. And you've got to think about whether we need to replace that or not. This pre-season, and it's only pre-season, we've had goals coming from all over the park, and we've had a striker in Mateo Joseph who seems like he wants to score for fun this season. So I don't necessarily think that we do need to buy someone who's going to score us 20-odd goals in the championship season. I think you need someone who's going to contribute to the system. Lockie mentioned Jonathan Rowe. The thing about Jonathan Rowe is he's only 21. Yes, he's worth a fair bit of money. I think Transfermarkt has him at about 9 million euros, which is about 8 million quid, I would imagine. It's not the world's biggest championship transfer, but he's quick. He's really quick. He stretches the play, a really good counter-attack player. He plays off the left with a right foot and can cut inside and score goals. As obviously last season, he scored 12 goals and got 2 assists. So whilst his contributions in terms of assists might not be way up there, his goal scoring, replacing some of those Summerville goals, and also his pace, his ability to stretch the play and on the counter-attack to really play out wide and then cut in. I think he would also be a good option if we're going for a permanent transfer, if you're going to sign some. I think it's also something that Leeds could get done. I can't remember which one of you mentioned that Plymouth are obviously a little bit lower down in the league than we are. So yes, you could probably pluck a player from them and go, this is a better opportunity for you to get Premier League football. With Norwich, I think they consider us as a direct rival. Whether we consider them as that is a different matter, but they're certainly in the playoff territory, obviously, because that's what we played against them last season. But they've had a good few years now out of the Premier League, and we've only had one. And when you look at our squad, and the depth and the quality that we've got in there, I can't imagine many championship players not wanting to come to Leeds over staying at Norwich. And that might annoy Norwich fans, but this is a Leeds channel, so who cares? I think we could tempt him out of Norwich. And also, I think, like Joe says about if we went up to the Premier League and Morgan Whittaker didn't quite make it, you find a taker at the top end of the championship, certainly, or even a newly promoted side who wants to take someone on. I think the same applies with Jonathan Rowe, to be honest, because of his age. He's only 21, so by the time he'd spent even 2 years with us, he'd only be 23 still. Any championship team or lower Premier League team will probably be happy to take him. So I think you're kind of covered there. But it's like we said, it's just whether we take a punt on a loan, which, like Locky says, if it's a loan, it has to be a good player, has to be the right player. And if it is a loan, then it's from a Premier League club, isn't it? Like your Raksaki, or someone from a Premier League club who's not quite making it at the moment. But either way, I think, like I said, because we're getting goals from all over the park now, or it certainly seems that way in pre-season, it's not as much of a worry to replace his goals. But for me, Jonathan Rowe would replace a good chunk of them.
Taught Norwich City yesterday, 2 days ago, and they were talking about this. And they think, and they're usually quite close with the club, they usually get these transfer things right. He actually said that Rowe won't go for less than 20 million. Whether that happens or not.
They seem to be slapping 20 million on every single one of their players. They can just go on. Any one of these players are all 20 million. All of them are 20 million. Which
I've
do
got
they have the kind
Norwich
of money in the club to demand that? Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
It's fine, sorry. I've got a Norwich fan co-worker who has been updating me on all of this and specifically sent me a message. You know, when those completely bollocks stories about Gabriel Saro coming out, and it's like, Leeds have bid 6 million. I was, no, we've not.
6 million. Go on, then.
And he basically said, yeah, so we have to make one sale, and it's looking like it's going to be Adam Idah going to Celtic. They're just waiting for a couple more million quid on their bid. And from that point, they are financially fine. Sure, if anyone hits their price tag, like us, basically, if anyone hits the price tags, sure, they can sell them. But they aren't in need of a sale. So if it comes to it, I don't think we're going to spend 20 million on Rowe just because there's probably similar quality for cheaper. Same for Sara.
I don't think they'd get that much off anyone.
I think that's the point. I think it's right, fuck off. We're not selling. If you're stupid enough to pay that much, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a go away. It's very much a go away figure. It's like he's got.
That's a better way of phrasing it. Yep.
Yep. But it's they're not in a rush to sell him. That's the kind of looking at it, going, there's time on the contracts. We don't need to sell. That time will come if Norwich don't progress. That time will come where you'll have those players going, I want to go. And then we'll see where that goes. I had a thought today when I was doing the news this morning, talking about the Willie Nanto. Me and Joe were talking off camera about ADHD people and going off on side tangents and side quests being more important than the main mission. And one thing that popped into my head during the news was, surely Willie Nanto will leave because his best mate's gone, and that's probably the last thing that was keeping him at the club. But then I thought, what was a conversation with him that says, well, that's your spot now. You take the number 10 shirt. You become the winger on the left-hand side where you want to play your favourite position. You go over there and you play there and you show everyone what you can do, and you fire Leeds into the Premier League and your value goes through the roof and you get everything that you want. And you've got time. You're not as old as Krieg. He's not old at all, but like Willie's a bit younger. I think Willie's a slight bit younger than him. So it's a little bit of time to kind
Yes.
of get to the same level as that, and then, you know, do the same move that Creed did. Maybe you set it to Willie as that going, you'll be a big part of this season. You know, your head's in the right place. And he has started games for Leeds in pre-season as well. So, you know, maybe there's something there if the player himself buys into it and wants to see. But it was very much popped into my head and thought, oh, what if? I'm not 100% even sure if I believe my own logic at this point. I think he possibly still will go. But just thought maybe, you know, am I reaching with that? Or do you think
I don't think so. I think it's kind of a known thing that sometimes clubs will basically promote someone to a position and then backfill behind them. So you bring in another Willie Nonto. Now, when I say bring in another Willie Nonto, at the price that he is now, yeah, you couldn't do that in the Championship. But remember how much we bought him for? We only bought him for £5 million. One thing I do think is we haven't really looked in leagues that are that obscure. Like, we looked on is it Torunariga from the Belgian league?
From Ghent.
But other than that, we haven't looked particularly.
That's us, Max. That's us and the information that's in the ether. But we also know last season a lot of signings came in from out of nowhere that we were like, oh, okay, didn't know that player was available. Yeah. So you could be a name just plucked that we haven't seen.
Because Nonto came from the Swiss league, didn't he? And I suppose one thing that we haven't mentioned is Liam Miller, who was linked earlier in the window. He's still in the Swiss league at Basel. That just reminded me.
Still a decent winger. He's a very decent winger. I would see him as a Jaden Anthony replacement and then bring in somebody to replace Creed. But even if you didn't, Liam Miller's... A lot of people have a very strong opinion against the player. He's a very good winger at this level as well. But again, I think it would be a shorter term move. But again, if the job is to get promoted and that ticks that box.
But then that's the sort of signing you would make if you do push Nonto into that role.
Yeah, there was. I just want to quickly talk about Liam Miller because there's a lot of misconception that his numbers are not good. He played predominantly left wing back for Preston. There was 4 or 5 games he played left wing, and 2 of them were against us.
Yeah, so
the rest of the season, he played as a wing back in a defensive system. So he was wasted. People just really don't like him. Think he's terrible. I watched him one game in Canada when he played in the thing a few days ago,
and that was enough.
That means the entire player is terrible. Yeah, he's a good player. Look what he did to Archer. That's what a player's capable of. Then if you can replicate that consistently, you've got a top player there. And like Matt said, you bring a player like that in, you know, and keep Willie Nonto on that left. You've got a Miller there. You've got a Dan James. That's ridiculous. Jorginho Rutter, if he needs to go out there. Come on.
Would you say
that's ridiculous?
Would you say as a kind of general rule, you would like 2 players in every position?
2 options in every position.
2 options.
More so. Yeah.
So like Ampadu can play centre back, for example, type thing.
Yeah. So for centre backs, i.e., there would be 4 centre backs, two for right centre back, 2 for left centre back. So when we consider what our options are already, left wing and right wing, you've got Dan James, Willie Nonto, Aronson, Jorginho. Am I missing anyone?
James, Nonto, Rutter, Aronson. Here are 4.
4.
And they can all play wing or 10.
Yeah, so you've kind of got 4 for 3 positions. So you do definitely need to bring in at least 1 or maybe even 2 more for those roles.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to figure out what we actually needed here, because
if we go forgotten that Pirro was a 10.
We did. That's your missing.
He goes somewhere.
Joffy as well, I suppose. Joffy and Pirro are both in that bracket as well. And Joffy's been used on the right in pre-season a little bit when he has come on. And Leeds could go with a 3-4-3 like they did against Harrogate, and then it's a centre back that you need, and you've got Firpo and Bogle probably in their best positions of wing backs and not full backs, probably. And then you can tuck your 2 10s in behind Joseph, and you know you can have either your choice of Nonto, Rutter, Aronson, Pirro, Gallagher. There's depth there depending on, but there's a lot more options this year than there was last year. Like last year, it was a 4-2-3-1, and that's it. That's the deal. This year, you kind of look at it and go, there's a bit more to this squad, and there's a bit more option here. I believe anyway. There are some gaps still. I think we'll close out on this because I think that's the important part, is that we need to fill the gaps. And for me, there's 3. Right now, there's 3. Centre mid, right back, or left back, another full back, and replacing Rutter. And if anybody else goes, they need to be replaced as well. But outside of that, that's the 3 right now. I think if Leeds plug those 3 gaps heading into the Valencia game this Saturday and then into kicking off the season next week. I would feel that we're in a much better position than we were last year. Joe, would you agree with that, or would you still be a little bit worried?
I already feel like if we hold on to what we've got, we're in a way better spot than we were last year. Like, we forget that we had to play Jamie Shackleton as the right winger. That's how bad it got. And
Leo
thankfully
Kelder's your first choice left back for the first game of the season.
Oh, yes.
First
And
game.
thankfully that was a match that I didn't have to watch because I was at Spoons with my mates. But I'm very much sort of happy-ish where the squad is now. Definitely want a central midfielder just to add a little bit more depth to that, because if you need Ampadu at centre-back, you're back to, great, it's Gruev and Rothwell, and maybe Aronson can go there, but that's a big question mark. Left-back, definitely not looking ideal. I mean, I guess we saw Max Wuber there, but he's not quite a pacey boy, is he? I don't quite think he does wing-back very well. And I think anyone that can play anywhere across that front line for the Somerville replacement would be perfect. But I don't think it needs to specifically be someone that can replace Somerville, because we've got to remember that Nonto was playing on the wing he doesn't prefer last season to account for Somerville, so he can always go over. I'm kind of happy, to be honest.
Well, okay. So, sorry, it depends. For me, I'm happy with the squad overall as is. I would like to add another winger to backfill Somerville's slot, and then I think we're in a good position. I think, like you mentioned, Joe, we did play 3 at the back at some point. So if we are going to have to play 3 at the back, we don't know whether that's going to be a consistent thing or not. It's not been the thing that he's used throughout his career, Farke, consistently, has it? But if we are going to use that, then potentially we do need another centre-back. Because if you consider that you've got Rodon right centre-back, Strauch in the middle, and then Verber at left centre-back would be my preferred 3 if you're going to play 3 at the back. After that, you haven't really got anyone apart from youngsters like DeBio on the bench. So if you are going to do that, I think potentially you do need an out-and-out central defender. Actually, as well, I think we need a central defender anyway, because I don't want Ampadu playing in centre-back this season. He was brilliant in centre-back last season. But even from the preseason friendlies, when Ampadu isn't on the pitch, we move the ball so much slower. We're so much less intense with our press. We're so much less high up the pitch. When Ampadu and Gruev were literally in basically number 10 roles when the rest of the players are around the box. As soon as Ampadu came off, we didn't. So we need him in midfield. So I think we need another centre back as well.
Yeah. Locky?
Yeah, I agree. I think I like James DeBeo, though. I think he looks really good, but obviously you can't rely on just him. That's silly, isn't it? And unfortunately, we know Farker absolutely loves Ampadu at centre-back and would do anything in his power to play Ampadu at centre-back if he could. So we'll see. I hope we do, but probably not, let's be honest. Winger would definitely, Somerville's gone. So definitely a winger or a player who can play in that role at the 10 or the wing, whatever. Yeah, apart from that, definitely an 8 profile. I think we have Rothwell's a good 8 profile, but I still think we need another one. We don't really have another one, to be honest. We have 6s, but we don't have an 8. We definitely need that. Kind of like a Rancic type who was really good for Down Farker in the Championship. Could play deeper, could also get in the box and score goals, dangerous around the box. A type of player like that would be really good for us. And, the player we link with is.
I think that's what the Jubicic move is meant to be, isn't it? To fill that kind of role, because it looks like Farke does still want that role, like you say.
Yeah, that'd be a good profile, someone like that. Yeah. But yeah, apart from that, there's talk about striker, but I don't think that's feasible right now. Yeah, you do, and you're hoping that at least 2 of them will be good or fit. And if that's the case, we'll be fine.
I think we've got. I actually think, whilst we're Leeds fans and we're very pessimistic, I think we've got a bit of an embarrassment of riches up front in the Championship. I honestly think if you ask any other Championship team, they would probably take any of the 3 of them. So, I think there's people going, no, they're terrible. They can't score goals or whatever. And it's like, hold on, Peru scored like 40 odd goals over the last 3 seasons. Bamford, look. We're not getting into Bamford now, but any other Championship team, whilst the fans might be like, oh, he's crap, he's a good Championship striker. And Mateo Joseph looks like he's ready to go.
Yeah. I think if you look at it from a club perspective, Farke wanted Pirro last year. He's the manager, not the coach. So he's very much involved in who Leeds bring in and who he wants in his team. And he wanted Pirro. I think if he goes back to the board this summer and goes, I want another number 9, or I want a striker, the board would say to him, Joseph, Bamford, Pirro, Gallagher can all play in that. All of them can play as a 9. You're the manager. These are your players. It is your job to get them to play better. You're the coach. Coach him to be a better striker. Coach him to fit your system. Coach him to press. Do the work. That's you wanted him. You got him. We spent 10 million quid last year on him, which was a lot of money, which will raise to 15 at some point. Your job is to now make sure he starts firing. I strangely enough think Pirro will score goals this season. I think he'll have a good season this year. I think a year with Leeds finding his feet, getting used to Ellen Road, getting used to everything that goes around it and everything else. I think his second season, he could be an awful lot more impactful. But I think Joseph is the one who's going to hit the ground running at the start of the season, and we're going to play around him, and I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that. I said it last year, if you surround a player like Joseph with first-team regulars and good players, you'll see the best of him. If you put these players into a team and surround them by the reserve players that you likely play in the first round of the Cup, you don't see the best of them because they're not surrounded by the best players. No, but you put him in with the better players and he can do it.
For me, he's got the best movement out of any of the strikers at the club. Even watching him in those pre-season friendlies, you just see him loitering in the blind spot of defenders, making runs, and when it doesn't happen, he loops back around and comes in and sneaks behind them as well. Again, it's just like his attacking movement is so good, and it's so good to see from such a young player that I think he's going to get a bag full of goals this season.
And you know what people hate about that, right? He will learn a lot of that from Patrick Bamford, and people like that.
And he has said it out loud. He said it last year, and he said it already in preseason. He's talked
People
about
hate that.
He spent time with Paddy last year about positioning. And the thing about it is you don't have to be a very good striker to know what a very good striker should be. Understanding the game and teaching the game and doing it yourself are very, very different things. Some of the best coaches in the world were very average footballers. You know, Klopp, Mourinho, nothing special. Two of them were nothing special. Great coaches in their time. You know,
Farke until that was that touch. My God.
Yeah, you can go through all of them. You can go through the top of the division, go all the way down outside of Pep. Probably the bulk of them were mid-league kind of players. So if Bamford can tell Joseph what he should be doing, Bamford might himself not have the skill set to necessarily do all of those things. I funnily enough think that Joseph will score an awful lot of near post goals this season, running across the keeper and getting little nicks on balls. I think that's his run. Exactly. 100%. That's exactly what I see. Or even Nonto going there. Dan James going to the byline and smashing it and him nicking in.
A lot of Bogle assists as well on those overlapping.
Yeah. We're going to wrap it there because we're supposed to be 30 minutes and we're at 52 and 48 at this point. So we are going to talk all night with a list of other stuff. We'll cover it next week when we do the pod next week. But a massive thanks to Locky, to Max, and to Joe. And again, just a reminder, the details for Joe's charity walk are down below in the description. Please go check it out. It's a fantastic cause. Get in touch with Joe as well if you want more finer detail on it as well. Yeah, and go support them. Support the lads as well. Go over, check out their channels as well. And as always, just a massive thanks for me for supporting the channel. But Joe, anything else on your channel this week that you want to plug?
I might do a little bit of a stream depending on signal whilst walking. That could be quite fun. I've got no idea if we're doing that. And another little thing that might get people to click the channel link below. What I'm doing up until the start of the season is basically, I'm going to say for every subscriber I've got at the first game of the season, I'll donate 1p further to Prostate Cancer UK. So at the moment, it's around 41 quid-ish. I know you have 10 times the number of subscribers as me, so make me bankrupt, people, and let's do it for Prostate Cancer UK.
Hashtag bankrupt Joe. Let's get on it. Let's get that done.
Absolutely.
Max, anything going over on Leeds lately this week?
Yes, I've started uploading consistently since the 16th of last month. There's been videos every day, so plenty to come and check out the channel for. There's scouting reports of people who I think we should sign, news videos, updates, and also what I do think is quite good, if I do say so myself, is the ones where I watch back the games, our pre-season friendlies, and do some tactical analysis on them. So if you want to have a little look at that, then that's also something to check out.
Your tactical analysis brother in arms, Locky, what's going on over your channel this week as well?
Oh, I've just done a released it. I did it at 4 a.m. last night. That's the dedication I had. I did a Summerville replacement video, which has been in the works for months. Let me just tell you that. So finally I got to release it. So if you don't mind watching that, some players that we could replace Somerville with. And there'll be, the friendly, tactical breakdown on the friendly and all that stuff coming up. So, yeah.
Great. All right then.
What about you,
folks.
Joe?
Oh, I've just daily news and the podcast, and I'm doing a thing with stats tomorrow night. There'll be a match review, and then there'll be a review. Our first review of the season will be after the game at the weekend. Won't be the day after. And I have a special guest coming on to the show from a different place that I'm holding until he appears on the channel on either Sunday or Monday. We haven't started to find out details of it, but some people will know him from other Leeds podcasts that are not in our sphere but are out there. So looking forward to that as well. But that's it. But I'm going to say goodbye. Massive thanks as always, folks. I'll be back tomorrow morning for the Leeds news. Check out the lads' content. Everything from the guys is linked